Harry, to put it politely. I think she is very manipulative. Meghan Markle is someone who's basically got rid of almost her entire family on her side, apart from her mother, her entire family on the father's side, including her father, which is incredibly sad. And now she's wrestled Harry away from his family.
Reporting this here in the States, it's multiple publications that's reporting it in the United States. And look,
becoming working worlds with the monarchy.
No, I don't think it's ever going to be possible.
Multiple U.S. outlets began reporting the story almost simultaneously. At first, it sounded implausible, another rumor, another exaggerated headline. But as more publications echoed the same details, the tone shifted from speculation to concern. Something significant had happened, and it centered on Prince Harry. After years of resistance, distance, and carefully curated independence, Prince Harry's return to the United Kingdom did not resemble reconciliation or triumph. It looked like withdrawal. There were no public greetings, no symbolic gestures, no attempt to shape the narrative. He stepped off the plane quietly, shoulders tight, eyes downcast, moving quickly toward a waiting vehicle as if remaining visible for too long carried risk. This was not a homecoming. It was containment. Because once the truth, or what insiders now carefully describe as the alleged truth, about Meghan Markle's pregnancies began circulating within legal and institutional circles, Harry didn't push forward. He retreated inward, back toward the monarchy, back toward the only system with enough legal gravity to absorb a revelation of this scale. And that is where this story truly begins. According to a legal consultant who previously worked closely with the Sussex operation, there was a night when Harry finally cracked. No cameras. No press statements. No carefully crafted language. Just a private room, an unbearable silence, and words spilling out because he could no longer carry them alone. What he allegedly admitted stunned even those who thought they had heard everything. He said Meghan never carried their children. He said the version of events presented to the world was not the full truth, only a version Meghan insisted on, and one he agreed to uphold because he believed it would protect their family. At the time, Harry thought secrecy meant safety. He believed silence was strength. But years later, that same silence had become the heaviest burden he had ever known. Those close to him say Harry is no longer angry. He isn't defensive. He isn't attacking the press or issuing rebuttals. Instead, he appears hollowed out by guilt. Not because of surrogacy itself, but because of the lie built around it, layer by layer, growing thicker with every passing year. I just wanted to protect my family, he reportedly said. I didn't think it would go this far. Those words, insiders say, explain everything. Harry didn't collapse overnight. He stepped into this reality gradually. And the moment he realized the story could no longer be controlled, something inside him fractured. For years, one person remained completely invisible. Her identity is being withheld here for legal reasons. She is known only as DL. And according to her account, she is not adjacent to this story, she is central to it. DL claims she was not only a surrogate, but the biological mother of both children. She says she possesses DNA evidence, medical documentation, emails, and contractual paperwork that was never intended to exist beyond sealed agreements and locked archives. For a long time, DL remained silent. She says she lived under rigid non-disclosure agreements that demanded she disappear, no voice, no acknowledgement, no public existence. She was promised protection, compensation, distance, and finality. According to DL, none of that materialized. She claims she was never fully paid, never checked on, and never acknowledged again after the births. Instead, she says, she was erased, deliberately and procedurally. No name. No role. No recognition. DL says she stayed silent because she trusted the system to honor its word. But when that trust broke, something shifted. She decided she would not be erased twice. That decision transformed a private arrangement into a public reckoning. To understand how DL entered the story, her account traces back to late 2018. She claimed she was approached by an intermediary connected to an elite fertility clinic known for servicing high-profile clients who required absolute discretion. The message was straightforward. A powerful couple needed help. Everything would remain confidential. The compensation would be substantial. The process tightly controlled. DL agreed. She signed the agreements, entered the clinic system, followed every protocol, every medical instruction, every appointment. Even clinic staff, she says, were kept in the dark about the true identities of the intended parents. She carried the pregnancy. And when the child was delivered, she says the door closed quietly behind her. No farewell. No follow-up. No acknowledgement. She was removed from the story entirely. And that is where the tone shifts. Because according to DL, what followed wasn't merely secrecy, it was replacement. A new narrative was constructed for the public, one that excluded her completely. While the world saw smiles, announcements, and carefully timed appearances, the foundation of that story was already cracking. Initially, no one questioned it. When the palace announced Meghan Markle was in labor, the world leaned in. Then, almost immediately, another announcement followed. Archie had already been born. The timing felt unusual, but harmless. People assumed privacy, modernity, a different approach. DL offers a different account. She claims the moment wasn't rushed, it was delayed. According to her, Archie had already been born weeks earlier. Not in the UK. Not under royal observation. But quietly in the United States. No photographers. No palace steps. Just a private delivery followed by silence. If that account were true within this narrative, then the public presentation wasn't an introduction. It was a reveal, carefully timed to align with a story already written. DL says timelines were adjusted deliberately. Labor announcements, birth notices, and the absence of hospital documentation all served one purpose: concealment of the true sequence of events. Viewed through that lens, details that once seemed admirable now feel strange. Meghan appeared days later composed, polished, standing in heels, showing none of the physical signs typically associated with childbirth. At the time, she was praised for strength and resilience. DL offers another explanation. She says Meghan had not gone through labor at all. If that were the case, then what the world celebrated was not privacy, it was performance. And this is where emotion gives way to procedure. Because concealing a pregnancy doesn't just affect photographs. It affects records. According to DL, her name appears on none of the documents the public would ever see. Not discharge forms. Not certificates. Not official records tied to the children. She claims she was told directly that no trace of her could remain, not even a signature. If that instruction was followed, then the story wasn't just hidden. It was reconstructed legally. Months later, another detail resurfaced. Archie's birth certificate was quietly altered. Meghan's name was removed. At the time, it was explained as a clerical adjustment. Placed beside DL's account, it takes on a different meaning. Not correction, containment. And this is where the monarchy enters the picture. Not as a villain, but as an institution suddenly uncertain of what it was protecting. Royal succession is not symbolic, it is legal. If records don't align with reality, institutions don't panic. They prepare. And somewhere in that preparation, Prince Harry boarded a plane and returned home. There was no announcement. No press strategy. No carefully worded statement about private family matters. He landed quietly, exited through a side route, and was driven away without ceremony. For a man who once vowed never to return on the institution's terms, the silence spoke volumes. This wasn't defiance. It was surrender to gravity. Inside palace walls, the mood was not emotional. It was procedural. According to insiders, Harry was met not by senior royals, but by lawyers. Not embraces or lectures, but binders. Thick ones. Tables covered with documents, timelines, and questions that had nothing to do with public opinion and everything to do with risk. The monarchy does not react emotionally. It audits. And for the first time in years, Harry did not resist. He sat. He listened. he answered. Those present say he didn't argue or correct language. He spoke slowly, carefully, as though each sentence had lived inside him for years, but had never been allowed to exist aloud. He explained what he knew, what he believed, and what he didn't know. That last part frightened him most. In this account, Harry admitted he never saw certain documents, never signed specific disclosures, never asked questions because he trusted the process around him. He believed the narrative because it was framed as protection, not deception. That admission shifted the entire conversation. This was no longer about rebellion versus institution. It became about liability. Whether the monarchy itself had unknowingly inherited a narrative that did not fully align with reality, and whether correcting it now would cause more damage than maintaining silence. Powerful systems always face this dilemma. Expose the truth and risk collapse, or contain the story and risk decay. While legal teams debated protocol, another clock was ticking. DL. She did not act impulsively. She did not leak documents or tease evidence online. She assembled a team, legal, medical, media. Not for spectacle, but for protection. Her goal, she says, was simple: acknowledgement. What hurt most wasn't secrecy. It was erasure. Her team began verifying records, cross-checking metadata, and confirming timelines, ensuring that if anything surfaced, it would surface as documentation, not rumor. Records change everything. According to this narrative, the palace became aware of DL's preparations weeks before the public did. That knowledge accelerated Harry's return. Because once evidence exists outside your control, strategy becomes urgency. Harry reportedly asked one question repeatedly. If this comes out, what happens to the children? Not titles. Not optics. Stability. Because regardless of how the story was constructed, Archie and Lilibet were real children with real futures, and Harry feared they would become collateral damage in a war of narratives. Advisors were direct. Children do not suffer from truth. They suffer from chaos. And chaos was approaching. The issue in this account was never surrogacy. The monarchy could have navigated that quietly and compassionately if it had been disclosed properly. The problem was representation, records shaped to fit a story rather than reality. That is why the palace's silence mattered. Not denial. Preparation. Because once evidence enters public view, intent becomes irrelevant. Law does not care why a story was told, only whether it was accurate. As DL prepared to speak, speculation surged. Not because facts were confirmed, but because old questions resurfaced. Timelines. Announcements. Missing medical confirmation. Details once dismissed as harmless suddenly felt unresolved. Unresolved stories do not remain silent forever. Harry watched this unfold from inside the system, not through PR filters, but as a man confronting the cost of his choices. He had agreed to a version of events because he believed love demanded loyalty. He feared that challenging the story would fracture his family. Instead, protecting the story fractured him. Friends say he barely slept, that he paced endlessly, that he asked to review documents again and again, as if repetition might alter meaning. He wasn't searching for villains. He was searching for clarity. And clarity is dangerous, because once you see the full picture, you cannot pretend you are still inside the frame. The most devastating moment came when Harry asked whether correcting the record would help or harm the children long term. The answer was sobering. There is no clean ending, only the least damaging truth. As DL's team finalized plans for a potential interview, another option emerged quietly: mediation. A controlled disclosure. Legal acknowledgement without spectacle. But mediation requires trust. And trust, by then, was gone. DL no longer believed silence protected her. Harry no longer believed silence protected anyone. And the institution no longer believed silence would hold. Something had to give. Harry's return to the UK was not about choosing sides. It was about choosing gravity, standing closer to the system capable of absorbing impact rather than shouting explanations from the outside. For the first time since leaving, Harry was not fighting the monarchy. He was asking for help. And that alone revealed how far things had gone. Because when someone who once burned bridges walks back across them quietly, it is not weakness. It is recognition that the fire is spreading. This next chapter is not about scandal. It is about reckoning. About whether institutions built on continuity can survive narratives built on control. About whether love, once bound to secrecy, can be separated from truth. And about whether a man who tried to protect his family by agreeing to a story can now protect them by helping dismantle it. Harry did not flee to the UK because he was defeated. He fled because the illusion was. And once illusions crack, they do not shatter loudly. They dissolve, leaving behind only what was always there: reality.